After my rigorous studying, my countless hours of combing the internet through case studies and exploring the larger sphere of professional athletics, I've come to a conclusion, and that conclusion is you probably shouldn't try to become a professional jiu-jitsu athlete.
I want DeAndre Cooley. We've got DeAndre Cooley at home.
Hello everyone. Welcome back to my weekly educational podcasts. Today's educational podcast focuses on the concept of a professional jiu-jitsu athlete. More specifically, why you probably shouldn't try to become a professional jiu-jitsu athlete. So right now, I feel like jiu-jitsu is kind of having a nice little moment in the combat sports community with the popularity of online jiu-jitsu content, thanks to B-Team and Craig Jones most notably. Obviously, we're seeing a bunch of people creating jiu-jitsu content. With that, more people are exposed to the sport, and that's great. I made a video on that a couple weeks ago. But I think when people are exposed to the sport, they tend to love it so much that they want to become professional grapplers, especially young people like myself. We see this as an opportunity for a career. We've grown up with, professional athletes being idolized and being looked at as some of the most successful people in our society, at least in our immediate vision, right? Families love to sit around the TV and watch football, watch basketball, watch baseball and soccer, and we kind of grow up seeing these athletes. We see Steph Curry in the Marty Supreme jacket.
Steph Curry just rolled up with the Marty Supreme jacket. I really like Timothy Chalamet.
We see all these professional athletes living lovely, lavish lives, and we think, wow, this could be me. And we grow up to realize, wait, everyone wants to play football, everyone wants to play baseball and basketball, and I'm not good enough to do these things. So when we start jiu-jitsu, we think, wow, I'm having success over all the other guys in my gym, regardless of the fact that all the other guys are mid to late 30, 40-year-olds. They already have careers. They're not professional athletes, but you don't care. You think, wow, I'm so good at jiu-jitsu, bro. I'm the next J-Rod, okay? I'm gonna go to trials and just buggy choke everyone and hop on people's backs, and I'm the only person that matters. At least that's what I think. I don't know what you guys think. And so I thought, wow, let me see if this is a realistic career opportunity. Let me see if what does the internet say per se. And after my rigorous studying, I've come to a conclusion, and that conclusion is you probably shouldn't try to become a professional jiu-jitsu athlete. I'll be outlining some reasons why. The first concept I'd like to make you aware of is the fact that jiu-jitsu is an individual sport. The sports I mentioned earlier, those basketballs, those footballs, these are team sports. And you're thinking, well, okay, they're sports. Someone wins. It's like, how different can they be? That's a good question. And to fully understand the differences between team and individual sports, I think we should look at this model, Stambulova's athletic career transition model. This model basically outlines what happens when an athlete in their professional career deals with a career transition. And a career transition is any event that changes the athlete's outlook on their career. So some of the common transitions that are outlined in this model are, when you first join a professional sports team, even going far back when you first start the sport, you're a little kid. So in the case of jiu-jitsu, a transition may be when you get a new belt, right? You stop competing in the beginner division, you go into the intermediate division. That's a small transition, but it is there for a lot of people. At the professional level, let's say you win ADCC trials for the first time and you go to ADCC World Championships. For a lot of people, that's a big career transition. And so what this model shows is how an athlete must undergo this transition. I'm not going to go through the whole entire transition model because that could probably take a while. Essentially, what this transition model outlines, what it explains, is that when a transition event happens in an athlete's career, they must find some way to cope with this if they cope with it successfully, they'll be able to use this event to transition to a greater stage in their career, transition to a more advanced stage in their career. If they can't cope with this event, then an external power must kind of come and help them cope with that, and then they can transition. If no other power comes and helps them, their career fails. So for example, if I'm a professional jiu-jitsu athlete, and I don't know, break my leg, I don't tap to a heel hook, right? This is a transition event. And when this transition happens, according to the model, the athlete must undergo a crisis prevention intervention. This basically, like I said earlier, this is the external kind of force that comes and helps you. But so I'm a professional jiu-jitsu athlete. My leg's broken, just like Sebastian Attard. The athlete must kind of cope with that, right? And you can cope with that through your own, mental tools, mental fortitude that you've accumulated over the years of being a professional athlete. Or you can have, teammates, coaches to rely on. But because jiu-jitsu is an individual sport, not everyone has these teammates and coaches. Whereas if you were a basketball, football player, you could have other people to lean on in this situation. I'm not saying jiu-jitsu people don't have anyone. It's just not as readily available as these other sports. So I've established that when a career transition happens, when an event like this happens, you need to have the resources to be able to cope with these events. And this is kind of where the team versus individual sport comes into play. For big team sports, the team, the organization, they have financial backing, they have resources, they have things to help if you undergo a career transition. Whereas in individual sports, especially in jiu-jitsu and place like the lower levels, you're not going to have those resources. And sure, you can, push through. If you're just an individual jiu-jitsu athlete, if you're kind of on your own in a sense compared to the team sport athletes, you can push through the first few career transition events. But if you have to constantly go through challenging events like this with limited resources, eventually there's a higher chance that your career will fail. And we definitely know that jiu-jitsu is a sport where resources are pretty limited.
It's already dangerous wrestling in that space because we might crash into another group. It's so funny to be a part of what a lot of people consider the best team in the world, but right now we're training in probably one of the smallest facility out of all the best teams in the world.
Okay, so not only do we have less resources, which will make career transition events harder, individual sports, this kind of goes for individual sports as a whole, not just jiu-jitsu, they tend to set athletes up for life after the sport worse. So I found this study, it was kind of an analysis of team and individual sport athletes. The aim of this study was to compare the career and retirement of individual versus team sports within Olympic athletes. In the population of individual sport athletes, almost half, 48% of the individual respondents said they had hardly anything going into retirement. So, no job, no plans, no support really. So going back to what I said earlier about individual sport athletes, especially jiu-jitsu athletes, having less resources to deal with career transitions, you can kind of see this play out in this study, right? So the individual sport athletes had less resources to deal with these career transitions, like going into retirement. So compared to the team sport athletes, they were just in a worse place overall. This is all in theory, right? This is just me reading papers, looking at studies. This isn't real life, or is it? I think when talking about this, it's helpful to look at real examples of athletes, and who better to look at than the Australian grappler Craig Jones. So in this 2017 interview with BJJ Fanatics, he was talking about one of his big athletic career transitions when he first went to a tournament overseas when he was a purple belt and competing in Pans.
I did the camp at Cabrini's, got my ass kicked, went out at Pan Am's, got submitted in 30 seconds. And so it was a negative experience. The whole experience was pretty negative, but it showed me what I had to do to get good, and showed me the way to get good. So when I came back after that, I started drilling every day. I stopped partying.
This is a perfect example of a successful career transition. Craig had the resources, the mental resources to kind of prevail through this career transition and advance to the next stage of his career. In order to reach the level that Craig has been able to reach, you would have to go through many of these career transitions, and that definitely would take a toll on you. So I probably wouldn't try it. But you tell me, you say, Kai, I can still become a professional jiu-jitsu athlete. I'll just have another job. Okay, maybe you can. Maybe this job will give you the resources that you need to successfully cope with the many career transition events that you will face in your journey to become a professional jiu-jitsu athlete. Maybe you want to say become a lawyer. Someone's already done that, actually. Paul Ardilla is a very, very high-level grappler. He's won the U.S. trials, I think 4 or 5 times. I don't remember. It's just been so many times. He's just really good. And he's also a personal injury attorney. I think he's a great case study in jiu-jitsu athletes who do also have day jobs. He's kind of on the extreme end with him being an attorney. Like you could work at Panera Bread or something. I don't know. But yeah, so he's an attorney by day, a grappler by night is what he says. And I think there are pros and cons to this approach. One of the big pros is that it doesn't matter if you lose, right? If you lose in jiu-jitsu, your source of income won't magically disappear like it would if you're really riding on this submission bonus.
I mean, I always feel like I have nothing to lose, man. To me, it's just a competition. I don't give a fuck. Like, if I lose this shit, my career is not riding on it by any stretch of the imagination. I'll be just fine if I lose a match. And my ego will also be just fine if I lose a match. So,
but on the flip side, you will be so busy. When Paul was going to law school, he would basically wake up at 12, go to class during the day, go train at night, get home at like 7 or 8, then stay up until 3 a.m. reading material for his law school classes. That is like an insane way to live your life.
I had doubts the entire time, but here in the United States, law school is extremely tough. As I'm in law school, I'm still training and trying to compete and trying to run through the grueling hours of, law school.
You got to be built insanely different. And don't come over here telling me, bro, but I'm different. I'm going to be the best. No, you haven't done it. You have to try this. Try doing this and tell me, yeah, I'll be able to do this for 2 years. No. I digress. Maybe you can do it. Actually, I think, you know what? No, disregard this entire video. I don't want to sow seeds of doubt in your mind. I want to uplift you. Everything I just said about career transitions, lack of resources, individual sports, don't listen to me. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit carried away. Anyways, I just wanted to make this video to spark discourse around the topic of a professional jiu-jitsu athlete. I feel like it's a very interesting thing to talk about. So many people these days, so many competitors that I meet kind of want to become professional. And, I've heard people argue both sides that it's an unrealistic thing, that like you probably shouldn't try to do this. But then I've also heard people say you got to chase your dreams and do what makes you happy. And I think looking at, real case studies and looking at actual like people who studied this stuff is an interesting way to approach the situation. But at the end of the day, I don't think other people's experiences should always deter you from doing what you want to do. From a purely logical perspective, if we look at the evidence against becoming a professional grappler, it's like, why would you ever do this? Why would you logically, it doesn't make sense to try to pursue this as a career. But sometimes logic doesn't matter. So maybe heed my warnings, understand the risks, and proceed with caution. I mean, what do I know? I don't know anything. I mean, I'm trying to go to ADCC. I'm trying to compete at the highest levels, so I'll see you there, I guess. Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. See you later.